Step 1, the sample fabric, one piece, 18.5 inches in lengthwise by 4 inches in the crosswise. That's the waistband. 17 inches by 6 inches, that will be the skirt. Then you'll need a piece of interfacing. And for this one, everyone will be using fusible interfacing. So the glue on the one side of it, and you need those 3 pieces. The first thing you're going to do is fold the waistband piece in half, hot dog, and give that a good press. So when you open that, you can see that crease line. Put the interfacing piece. Actually, that one's a little long, so I'm going to cut it to 5/8. And wedge that up in there. And do the fusible, the heat, moisture, time, and pressure. Make sure your iron has steam going on it. Okay, once you've done this, the side that has the interfacing on it becomes the side that will face the world. It's going to be, and this back piece is the facing side. So on the facing side, you're going to fold up 5/8 of an inch, and to measure that, seam gauge, if you have one, the fat part of your seam gauge is 5/8 of an inch. So just put that down, keep that width at 5/8. And since that's fusible interfacing, make sure your iron stays away from it so you're not getting any of that glue accidentally on the bottom of your iron. And then, to save time later when we attach this to the skirt, we're going to grade this down, because it's easier to do it right now while it's out and flat than it's in that circle in the skirt. So go ahead and take down the seam allowance here by 3/8 of an inch. So you're leaving a 1/4 of an inch. All right, and that was step 3. Step 4 is to put a row of stay stitching with a length of 3 along the top of the skirt. And stay stitching is done at a 1/2 inch, and we'll just use 1 row of stitching over here. So the machine, when you turn it on, will default to a 2.5. So change your stitch length and make that 3.0. Put this down at a 1/2 inch. Another row of stay stitching. And okay, since I can't tell the right side from the wrong side on this particular fabric, I'm going to put a pin right here to tell me that this is the right side, because when I'm going to use this stay stitch as a ease stitch also, and I want to be pulling on the bobbin thread, so I want to know which side is my right side and my wrong side. But that was 4. So 5 is to sew the 6-inch side of the skirt sample together with a 5/8 inch seam allowance. So take your stitch length back to 2.5 or 2.4 and sew the pretend side seam allowance. So this is the right side's together. And I only will be sewing the bottom inch, approximately. You don't have to measure too precise. So a little back stitch, go to the bottom, back stitch again, and trim those. Oh, my scissors. All right. So this will be my skirt piece. This represents my bottom, my side seam or center back, wherever the zipper is, and this opening will be where the zipper would be. But we're not going to put a zipper in this because I know you don't want to put in another zipper. We'll just pretend there's a zipper there. And we've now created a tiny little mini skirt. find a sleeve board, press that edge open, that little 1-inch seam that you just sewed, and then continue up and press open 5/8 of an inch on each side. So this will be the right side of the skirt, and zippers lap on the left. So this side, on the left side, I'll take my waistband and put the right side of my waistband against the right side of the left side. Makes it a little confusing, but if you can see this, you'll see then that the side where the interfacing is going to be this side with the seam allowance, so that's a 5/8 inch seam allowance right there hanging out, because like I said, in reality there would be a zipper right there. So I'll pin that, and then pin, come around and pin. The other side is going to be 2 1/8 inch. So there's 2 1/8 inch of lap before my zipper edge will match up to there. So match that to the top edge. And what's going to happen, I don't have 2 pins, is the skirt is slightly bigger than the waistband. So you can see that this much. So you'll pull on the stay stitching / ease stitching and get that. You don't want it gathered in, you just want the ease stitching. And what that looks like at the top is a little bit of ruffly edges. So I'm going to put them to the inside so you can see this a little better. So see how the green skirt fabric has these little ripply ridges to them, but now the skirt and the band are the same size. So just start. I like to sew looking at the skirt side so I can make sure that it's not going to bump or bubble on me as I sew. And you'll be sewing this at 5/8. Okay, so at the end of the row, trim these threads out, and we need to press this that we just sewed. So back to pressing lesson, the 3 steps. First, you press what you sewed. So this sets the stitches. Press this around flat as it was sewn. The second step is to press it open. I like to do this on the skirt board because I can get to it better. And the reason you press this open before pushing this one off to the top is to keep this totally flat. If you just press that up without pressing it open first, a lot of times you'll end up with a little bubble down here at the bottom, and this keeps that nice and firmly open. So after it's been pressed open, now you can push up the skirt into the band and give that a nice clean line all the way up. So the skirt towards the band. All right, trim grade, and it's wide to the world. So here's the world. The seam allowance that's the one right behind the waistband, which would be the brown one, will be the long one, and the green one will be shorter. So let's take them both down to 3/8, cut off 1/4 of an inch, and then the green one, which is going to be the shorter one, to grade, we'll take it down another 1/8 of an inch, down to 1/4 of an inch. So you can see I've trimmed that. The green one's shorter than the brown one. The skirt This has been left wide to the world. Then come back to the side that just has the 5/8 of an inch hanging out and fold the waistband back on top of itself. And you're just going to sew straight down at 5/8 of an inch using this line and then just coming straight up right from it. Right, to trim and grade this edge, this is the wide to the world. So everything will get cut first at 3/8, and then the facing side's going to come down and get cut just a little bit shorter. And at the corner, to make that turn and make a nice crisp corner, you can take that at an angle just a little bit and then press this open. You won't be able to get all the way into it, so you just fold back the side. Need to have this iron on the other side. How does that work? Oh, what? Yeah, like this. So if I fold back the seam, and bring that back. Then when this presses the other way, then that will be straight against the same edge the zipper would be right here, and then the waistband would be right up from it. All right, to do the other side, it's a little bit of a trick. So you've put right sides together again, match up these folds, only this time you'll unfold the folds, come over to the corner and start at 5/8 of an inch on this side, but I've already trimmed this side, so this is still at 3/8. So come make this seam 5/8. When you hit the corner, you'll turn and go along in the ditch. Right at the corner, you're going to shorten your stitch so you have a nice reinforcement on that edge. Yeah, good point. So this is the corner where I'm going to turn this, and there'll be a lot of pressure. And in order for those stitches to stay strong, when I'm about 1/2 of an inch away from that fold right there, I'm going to just change my stitch length and take it down to a 1 and sew to the fold. Leave the needle in, press your foot up, pivot, and sew still on length 1 for 1/2 inch in the other direction. And then change that back to regular stitch length, 2, 4, 5, whichever, and connect back to this stitch, but stop about 2 stitches away from it. Don't go right to it, you get a little pucker, and you don't want that. So we're going to stop, back stitch, a little gap right there will help that turn better. All right, so trim and grade the edge. The one that's going to show is this one. So the back one I want to take down just a little bit shorter, diagonal the corner, and then I can trim this one just a little bit more. And then press that. Same as before, you won't be able to get to it, so just press that up and that up. It's been pressed already. So on these, if you don't burn your fingers, you'll open that up and take that to the back. Flip it over and fold that back. Okay, and you can flip this to the right side out. See how we did. This is the underlay, so this is where the button or the hook and eye or the snap or whatever closure you're going to use is going to be. I don't like how much fabric's in there. You can go back in here and be a little bit more aggressive because you have that reinforcement stitch right there. I'm going to go back and take that down really close. Okay, so on the right side, I have an underlay, and on the left side, it will come over and lay right on top of that and close that up. Now, to sew the waistband on the back facing and attach it, for the sample, your TA needs to be able to see up inside here and make sure that all this in the ends was done correctly. So what you'll do is find the middle of your waistband. You put a pin right there. And then about halfway one direction, so about there. And then on the other side, halfway the other direction. It ends up being about 4 inches. So from the ends, leave these open. This needs to stay up in there better, so that the TA can grade your project. And in one of these sections, you're going to stitch in the ditch, and the other section you will edge stitch. From about here to the center, to stitch in the ditch, you need to make sure that this back of the band is hanging down lower than the front of the band. So there's where the front of the band ends. I've got to make sure that my band on the back side is going to get caught. So if I put a pin right here where my stitching will end up, look on the back side and make sure that the band is there. Then you'll know that you'll actually be sewing it when you hit that part. And the other section where you're going to edge stitch, you just barely cover up your stitch row right there. And it's going to be right on top of it. So that's right there to there. Okay, so the edge stitch, if you would like to use your number 5 foot, you're welcome to do that. This is the foot that has this little bar on it, and that way as you sew, except I'm going the wrong direction for it, it would be this way. You'll keep the bar right at your stitch point, pop your needle over, and you'll be right against the edge. And you're welcome to do that. I'm going to show you do it without it. So you can see better and not have the foot in the way. So I'm going to sew from about here to the middle with an edge stitch, and then the other 4 inches with a stitch in the ditch. Okay, this groove on my presser foot is where my needle is. So I'm edge stitching right here at the edge of the band. So I keep that groove just right down there really close, and make sure that I'm covering up my stitches on the back side. And go. Okay, when I get to this point, I want you to switch and go to stitch in the ditch. Stitch in the ditch is your row of stitching is exactly where your waistband meets your skirt. So I'm going to put my needle down just to anchor it. She says right there. Make sure that my band is actually hanging just a little bit lower, because I want to make sure I catch it. Okay, see how I did. That'd be embarrassing to miss it, huh? Okay, so the edge stitching, you see, caught the band on the back side and the band on the front side. The stitch in the ditch is between them. The stitching is hidden. If that thread were the same color, you wouldn't even see it there. But on the back side, you do see it. right along the bottom of the waistband. And that is the end of Waistband Sample. Thank you.